if you are a player in St. Louis and you're making significant money, I do expect you to be somewhat on the trade block this winter.
Hey, we're jumping in with some news on the St. Louis Cardinals. Scott Braun and Eric Kratz from Foul Territory, and it's Katie Wu from The Athletic, who covers the St. Louis Cardinals. Katie, thanks for joining us quick here. So Cardinal season is over, but they're making moves left and right. We find out that John Mozeliak's back for one more year to run the front office. He is keeping Oliver Marmol in place. And then you just reported on Chaim Bloom taking over in 2026. So first off, let's walk through all of the changes we've learned about in the past 48 hours. What's your reaction to them?
It's definitely a lot to process. When you think about the St. Louis Cardinals, you think about consistency, right? There isn't usually a lot of change. Not today. John Mozeliak will step down as his title of President of Baseball Operations after 2025. He said as much, though, even dating back to when he signed an extension in 2023. So this necessarily wasn't too surprising. What was more surprising was that Chaim Bloom was going to take over in 2026 as President of Baseball Operations. He signed a 5-year contract, which would take him through 2031. There was also some more shuffling in the Cardinals front office. Longtime general manager Mike Gersh, he's been reassigned to a vice president of special projects, and the Cardinals themselves are still figuring out what exactly that means. And of course, there will be a new director of player development. Longtime farm director Gary LaRocque announced his retirement in September. Chaim Bloom's first task in his expanded role with the Cardinals will be to fill that hiring. So lots of front office changes, lots of personnel changes. The biggest change, however, cannot be seen in a media guide. It's the direction of the club. The Cardinals are set to embrace a transition period, focusing on revamping what has been a very outdated player development system. It's not necessarily a rebuild. They won't call it that. They'll call it a reset. But by all definitions of the word, guys, it does look like a rebuild is coming to St. Louis, and how long that takes remains to be seen.
Yes, we can call it whatever we want on here because we're not team employees. So they're tearing it down a little bit, but it looks complicated. So let's try and unravel this portion of what they plan to do in the offseason. We already saw how Paul Goldschmidt is not going to come back. I mean, he's a free agent now, and he's coming off a down year. But it looks like you've written about many players that have a little thing called a no trade clause where they can deny getting dealt this offseason.
Right. It's a good question, and I'm sure it's something we're going to be talking about all off season. The Cardinals are going to see a reduction in payroll. John Mozeliak said as much. Owner Bill DeWitt II said so. Also, as they transition to remodernizing their player development program, they're going to be adding a bunch of different staffers and modern technology. What this means for the big league club is an emphasis on the youth. The Cardinals do have a strong young core. You think of guys like Mason Wynn, Alec Burleson, Lars Nootbaar, guys that have maybe come into their own as a Cardinal over the last couple of years. What it means for the older players or players that are making a lot of money remains to be seen. Like you said, Paul Goldschmidt is not coming back. He will be a free agent. We talked about guys like Sonny Gray, Nolan Arenado, Wilson Contreras, Miles Michaelis, all guys that are making a significant amount of money into 2025 and all have full no trade clauses. It'll be interesting to see what the Cardinals do there. There's also guys like Ryan Helsley, one of baseball's best closers this year. He set a franchise record for saves at 49. He's due for a major raise in arbitration. Could he also be on the trade block? Anything is possible for the Cardinals right now, and I think, again, we'll have more answers. But if you are a player in St. Louis and you're making significant money, I do expect you to be somewhat on the trade block this winter.
How do you think Cardinals fans are going to react to that when a lot of them felt like they were not getting enough invested into the major league club? Meanwhile, you wrote a great story in The Athletic about how they're not investing enough in, like you mentioned, some of their minor league development. It sounded like for minor league instructors, they have about a third of what the Milwaukee Brewers have, the team that's dominating the division lately. Now you're going to tell your fan base, hey, we've been spending that on the players, but we're not going to spend that as much on the players. Don't expect us to really contend next year. And they were dealing with some attendance issues down the stretch. So basically what I'm saying is, for a city that has had so much success, World Series titles, basically consistent either, winners, playoff teams, or close to playoff teams, are they ready for the pain that could come with 2-3 bad years of baseball?
So it's a great question and something that I ask athletic subscribers or people on Twitter all the time. I mean, for the longest time, I feel like the Cardinals fans just wanted change. They wanted to see that the organization recognized that things weren't working here. Well, the organization has recognized that things aren't working here. And while they won't call it a rebuild, that's what they're preparing to do. I'm not sure if Cardinals fans are understand what that looks like because for so long, rebuilding in St. Louis was unfathomable. I really do think that we're entering an unprecedented time for this organization's history, and it remains to be seen on just how long it will take to pull this off. Now, I will say the good news is that the young players they have, their young core, they do have a strong core in that. You know, there are guys that made major strides this year. I don't think that they necessarily have to tear this down to the studs. I think there is a way to expedite this rebuild, but, you know, by no means are the Cardinals expected to field a strongly competitive club in 25 and 26. And that's kind of what makes this whole revelation so shocking. It's that for so long, the Cardinals were one of baseball's crown jewels, and they always field a competitive team. I mean, Mo has been here since 2008, and he's had one losing season. Now I think what St. Louis fans need to prepare for is the possibility that there's going to be maybe one or two more losing seasons before they are really contending again. And again, that's only if this rebuild, this revamp to player development starts strongly and finishes that way.
Who's to blame for them falling behind? Is it the winning? Is it Yadier Molina? Is it Mozeliak? Like all those things that they fell behind while winning, which is like, I'd much rather my team be winning and falling behind. But why did they fall behind? Who is to blame?
That's such a good question and such a good point, because when you're winning at the major league level, nobody cares what your farm system looks like. Nobody cares that player development is falling behind. And it's so easy to kind of band-aid over that and be like, yeah, we're fine because we're the St. Louis Cardinals and we keep winning. I mean, they made the playoffs in 2019, 2020, 21, 22, and really 23 was their first jarring season in 2 decades. So in a way, winning so consistently hurt this club because if you're ownership, you're able to justify not spending money to player development, not staying up to date on the advancements analytically or the modern technology that you see teams like Milwaukee, like Los Angeles, like Houston regularly use. It's so easy to say we don't have a problem because we're winning, and you become somewhat resistant to change. I think that's human nature. But for years now, there were people inside the Cardinal system that could see that they were falling behind in player development, and ultimately, when you're ownership and you're giving out a set amount of resources, you feel almost pressured if you're the front office to keep investing in the big league team because that's how teams are measured for success. You know, I think while John Mozeliak is not immune to criticism, he was ultimately put in a tough spot. He had to make the choice of investing with the big league team or pouring finances into a minor league team. And you often don't see where that money goes if you're a fan, if you're a consumer, if it's going into the minor leagues. So ultimately, the Cardinals kind of got lost in their own way. And by the time they realized they were behind, it was years too late. And that's how they come to this point.
Listen, we got a problem. Half our viewers are not even subscribed. Hit the subscribe button. Do it.
We get it. Mornings are nuts. No time for breakfast, but you need to get your day started right.
What if a delicious, nutritious meal could be ready in seconds? Support for Foul Territory is brought to you by Huel, the world's #1 complete nutrition brand. With over 400 million meals sold worldwide, Huel is trusted by millions of people looking to fuel their days with convenient, complete nutrition. Try it for yourself with this exclusive FT offer. 15% off with the code FOUL at Huel.com.
You know we're all about saving time, but we get hangry, like a lot. I recently fell in love with the Huel Ultimate Super Greens powder, which is a perfect blend of 91 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients. I also love their complete nutrition bars, and those hot and savory pouches are fire too.
FT fam, give it a shot. Get 15% off with the code FOUL at HUEL.com. Unlock a healthier, easier way to eat with Huel. Nutritionally complete meals in minutes so you can focus on what really matters.
Cardinals fans have been laughing at Pirates fans for years, and the Pirates are like, we're investing in our minor leagues. We never invest in our big league team. I'd much rather be a Cardinals fan than a Pirates fan. But why Chaim Bloom now? Why give a guy, essentially he's taking Mozeliak's role, but they're giving him the 5 years. Is it because they're afraid another team might come and swoop him up? Or is it because you got to see for an entire season what his minor league system with the Red Sox built and now is supplying the big league team with the minor league minor league system that Chaim Bloom built.
I think the Cardinals knew when they hired him, when John Mozeliak hired Bloom in January to be a special advisor, that this is a succession place. It's very similar to how when Mo took over back in 2008, they knew their guy. It was just a matter of how do we get him there. And I've gotten a lot of questions today on why wouldn't Bloom just take over now? Why would Mo finish out the 1 year remaining on his contract? Well, 2025 is clearly going to be a transition year for the Cardinals. And if Chaim Bloom is what the Cardinals believe to be the long-term solution, making sure that Mo is there to take over the big league level one more time, because this big league team is not expected to contend next year, and make the trades, or not sign guys back and try to just kind of build that young core up. That allows Chaim to take over player development only this year and really bolster up the organization so that in 2026, he can fully take over. We mentioned Mike Gersh not returning as the general manager and being reassigned. I asked Mo if the Cardinals would hire a new general manager, and he said they would, but that would probably happen under Chaim's regime, where right now, Mo will just absorb both titles and both responsibilities. So it's just a transition year for 2025. I think these changes are important. Laying the foundation down in 2025 is important. But Chaim Bloom is the guy that ownership clearly thinks is going to be the right man for this job going forward. And right now, it's just about making sure he has the time and resource to lay down his own foundation in the minor leagues to hopefully carry that over in 2026 and beyond.
I'll finish with this because these are topics that I feel like, we can cover here in depth on our show, Foul Territory, and that you certainly do in The Athletic. Chaim Bloom is eventually going to take over this franchise, kind of with every component in the front office. I want to point out, with the Red Sox, like Kratz mentioned, 4 of the top prospects in the sport right now are guys that he selected for Boston in 22, mostly in 22 and 23. Look them up. Like Baseball America has them super high. It's Roman Anthony is their number 1, Kyle Teal, Christian Campbell, and Marcelo Meyer, who I know is dealing with an injury. But still, those 4 guys look like gem prospects. And I know Cardinals are hoping that he can do some of that for him. So leading to my question is, do you think that the DeWitts will put Bloom in a position to succeed long-term? Because it almost sounded like they told Mo in these last few years, according to your story, cool, you want to do this? You want to play up a little bit with the big league payroll so you feel like we can keep up? Well, we have to take away from our development. So if they're going to pour into the development, are they going to take away from the big league club and still set these finite budgets? I'm not saying necessarily that we know the answer, but just based off what you're seeing lately, is there a changing of the guard in the way that the franchise is going to operate? And will they fall in love with how some of these other Midwest franchises are operating? We saw the Twins take a step back because they were worried about their portfolio. The Guardians right now are the darlings because they have a low payroll and they've been able to get the job done. So I guess that's what I'm leading to with these Midwest teams. Looking at Milwaukee, hey, their big league payroll's not that large. We all want to be like them.
It's a great question. And a lot of this does go back to ownership. Again, Mo will be the fall guy because he is the face of the organization, but it comes down to resources and funding. And I think we already see a little bit of that answer here. To be clear, next year, the Cardinals do not have to cut payroll. They can still make the advancements needed to their player development system and upgrade their minor leagues. And sure, a chunk of that might come from the big league payroll, but they don't have to do this whole, hey, we're going to focus solely on the youth and we're not going to bring back a lot of these guys. Like, that's a choice that ownership is making. And of course, there are things that come into play here. The Cardinals' attendance was down dramatically this year. They they collected 2.85 million fans this year. That's what Bill DeWitt III said today. Now, that's a great draw for really any other franchise, but that was the first time the Cardinals did not draw 3 million fans in Busch Stadium III's 18-year history. There's also concerns on what their TV revenue platforms will look like, if they'll have direct-to-consumer streaming rights. All these things do play into payroll, but ultimately, the decision to cut payroll is an ownership decision, and we'll see if Chaim Bloom in the next front office in 2026 has a little bit leaner restrictions, because it was very clear over the last couple of years, really since 2021, that John Mozeliak had some tight parameters, and while he's not immune to criticism, some of those trades, some of those free agent signings did not work out. He ultimately chose to invest in the big league level and not in the minor leagues, not because he wanted to, but because he felt he had to.
Mm-hmm. And, when we're thinking about it for the offseason, I know we still have a ways to go. Obviously, we got the playoffs here, but this is what Cardinals fans are thinking about. I mean, this is going to affect free agency too, because the Cardinals, they weren't big players, but they were players in the free agent market. And Kratz, to me, this sounds a little bit like a bigger version of the Marlins. Hey, we brought in Peter Bendix. We can't do anything this offseason. We only can focus on the development portion of what we're doing. We invest more in our development. We hire more coaches, all of that. So anyway.
You don't say that. You don't say that. You don't say that
Hey,
to a Cardinals fan. You
I
don't say that. We're
understand.
not the Marlins.
I'm just trying to tell it like it is. I mean, the NL Central certainly is a spot where, you can take advantage pretty quickly of what's going on there, right? The rebuild usually can be quicker and you can have some surprise seasons. But anyway, Katie, super fascinating what they're doing right now. So it'll be cool to monitor. We'll be reading all your work in The Athletic throughout the offseason. Of course, we'll have you on FT. But thank you for joining us on what's been a busy day in St. Louis.
You got it, guys. I'm sure we will talk soon. Thanks again.
Yes, appreciate you. That's Katie Woo from The Athletic. Thanks for checking out this clip here on Foul Territory. We cover this every day, 1 to 3 Eastern, live. We'll see you on the next show.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.